What is yoga? Another way I'd like to consider this question is through the lens of some of the techniques and practices that people often associate with yoga, and also that I practice. And sometimes these days when people hear the word yoga, they immediately associate it with a yoga posture type of practice. And sometimes even people, when they use the word yoga, they think of yoga as just that, just like this type of physical practice, this type of exercise class, this type of keep fit pursuit, which I think is a great shame, really, because yoga has so much more to offer than just that. And really the essential, and it's something that struck me, and I find it does actually annoy me, is people talk about, I do my yoga and I also do meditation, as if they're different things. Because the basic yoga practice is meditation. That is the essential, foundational, source, principal practice. And all of the techniques are also intended to help us cultivate what I call the medi-state, the state of being in yoga, the state of being balanced, centered, so we can act more skillfully in all the different things that we do. And meditation is the basic yoga technique. Everything else is intended to facilitate that. And all of the yoga practices are intended to also promote a state of integrated, flowing, meditative, centered, balanced, integrated awareness. So when we think of meditation, what does it mean? I remember when I was a kid, I thought, if I want to meditate, I have to empty my mind. And I sat in my bedroom and in a cross-legged position with my hands on my knees and tried to just observe and watch my empty mind. And I didn't have a lot of success. I thought I couldn't do it. And then years later, when I met my meditation teacher and he taught me to meditate, I realized, no, thoughts are part of meditation. We don't have to try to do anything in particular. We just have to keep observing, keep coming back to the point of focus. So a yogic meditation, the typical practice is we give the powers of our awareness something to focus on. That could be, for example, the things that pass through our awareness. It could be that we focus on the movements of the breath, for example, or particular centers in the body and noticing the energy moving through those centers. It could be that we focus on a sound or a mantra internally. There are endless possibilities in the very broad and inclusive yoga tradition. And Patanjali in the Yoga Sutra, when he lays out the different methods that one can use to cultivate the state of yoga, he does so in a way that is very, very inclusive, and even culminates his section on techniques we can use by saying, you can also meditate on anything that actually helps you arrive at and cultivate and deepen that meditative state. So yoga is the medi-state. It's the state of being centered, balanced, integrated, whole, a state of attunement, at-one-ment. And meditation techniques are designed, as we've mentioned, for any technique, to help train us in the ways of being centered, balanced, and integrated. So, if we ask ourselves what is yoga, then meditation is a very helpful reference. Yoga is the medi-state. It's the state of being centered, and it is the cultivation of that centered medi-state. So if we practice using, for example, frames of reference, or you could even call it like a type of ethos of living, we use certain principles. We do our best to embody and share and live those principles so we can stay more centered. This is active yoga practice. When we take recourse to yoga techniques and do so with a view to deepening our establishment in that centered state, then we are practicing meditation, we're practicing yoga. So the main thing I would like to just communicate in this short video about yoga, what is yoga through the lens of meditation, is that to practice yoga means to practice the medi-state, and to keep inviting ourselves more and more holistically in every domain of life, through every moment of our day-to-day, to stay tuned to that medi-state. And this is the key. This is a key idea in yoga. Is why do we spend our time working with these techniques? We have to be very careful when we work with yoga techniques, because often when we find a technique that is the right medicine for us in the state we're in at this time, it will make us feel good. Now, when we feel good, what do we tend to want? We tend to want more. Now, if we feel a lot better when we start using a particular technique or set of techniques, it's very easy for the human mind to fall into the classic trap of associating the feeling better only with the technique, instead of recognizing the deeper, subtler truth that we're feeling better not really only because of the technique, but because of what that technique is allowing us to experience. So, for example, let's say you enjoy a particular meditation technique. You learn to practice this technique. You start practicing it. You do it diligently twice a day for 2-3 months. And then you experience in your life a challenging situation. But you notice you're navigating it differently from how you navigated this type of challenge in the past. You notice that you feel calmer. How do you feel about your meditation practice? It's self-validating now. You know, oh, this really works. Wow, this has really helped me. Or, let's say you start to really enjoy a particular type of dynamic yogasana practice. It makes you feel really vital. It's bringing a lot of energy and vitality to your physical self, clarity in your mind. This can be very addictive. But hopefully what we can recognize is when we work with these techniques, which have all these wonderful effects, we start to realize it's not the particular technique, it's what the technique is doing for us. It's what the technique is revealing to us. The technique reveals that when we do things that invite all parts of ourselves to come together, to join, to work together as a cohesive whole, wow, that is its own reward. And when, at the physical level, at the physiological level, when I invite my bodily, sense, mental, intellectual, and emotional powers to come together, I can have a significant influence on how I experience reality and how I meet the day-to-day, how I meet whatever life throws at me. And so this is the real trick. We have to take great care not to confuse technique with practice. The techniques make it easier to practice. The techniques are designed to help us recover, remember, recognize our deeper capacity for yoga. And when we talk about a deeper capacity for yoga, if we think about meditation as bringing everything into a centered, cohesive, balanced state, really, I think it's helpful to recognize that just our capacity as an embodied being to go to bed one night and wake up in the morning more or less in the same state, this demonstrates we're already, to some degree, quite adept at yoga. Because this physical body constituted of earth, water, fire, air and space, these elements, they don't naturally sit together so easily. If you put fire and water together, chances are we're either going to douse the fire or we're going to evaporate the water. If you put earth and water together into a glass, for example, you pour some water that's got some earthy elements in it, what happens? They separate. But in this body they don't. And so we are a living, breathing, walking proof of our own innate capacity for yoga. So when we practice meditation, when we practice activities that deepen our attunement to the medi-state, there's the idea we're not inviting something outside ourselves. We're not being overly ambitious. Rather, what we're doing is fine-tuning and deepening a capacity that we are already demonstrating to a significant degree. Now, of course, we may feel like, yes, but I don't always feel so centered. It may be one thing for my body to be able to stay in a relatively cohesive state day to day, but I'm not really aware of that. The body does that by itself, and it does, and it's an absolute miracle. You are a miracle. We are miraculous beings. But as miraculous beings, we have a miraculous capacity also to consciously deepen and fine-tune and expand that capacity for yoga. And this is what yoga asks us to do, to kind of take this great opportunity of a human birth. Because when we're human beings, we have a couple of very distinguishing characteristics relative to other animate beings. We have this higher linguistic capacity, and we have self-reflexive awareness. We can observe ourselves. We can notice ourselves tasting the food. We can notice ourselves reacting to something. With practice, we can notice a bit more easily. We can watch ourselves watching. We can watch ourselves feeling. And so we have an innate capacity to tune in to that observing consciousness and to live in a more, let's say, responsive and less reactive way. So as we practice meditation, we start to invite a little bit more spaciousness into our day-to-day, so we can be more responsive, less reactive, so we can be more centered and more balanced, and then meet life more skillfully. So coming back to those classic definitions, yoga is evenness and yoga is skillfulness in the things that we do. And so this is one of the reasons, one of the ideas about meditation as the foundational yoga practice. One of my friends is called Patrick. He once said to me in India, he said, shared it in a class. His teacher said to him, Patrick, if you don't have time to meditate 1 hour a day, then you need to meditate 2 hours a day. And the meditator who practices regularly knows that the time that is spent inside, the time that is spent in that state of deeper cohesion is certainly not wasted or lost if every day we carve out some time, we consecrate some time to tune into that subtler realm of integrated, subtler, balanced awareness. In that integrated, subtle, balanced awareness, it's as if all the different members of the gang of our being can just kind of settle and recalibrate and tune a little bit more subtly together. And then when we come out of that, it's like we've tuned, the orchestra is tuned up. And so we're then able to play a more harmonious movement as we move through the unexpected reality of life. So, yoga and meditation, not two different things. Yoga is meditation. Yoga is the state of being centered, balanced, and integrated. And meditation practices are the foundational yoga practices. And I would say, if you are going to teach or share yoga teaching, if you're going to share yoga teachings, it's absolutely essential that you include practices that help you tune into that subtle level of awareness. Certainly it's the case that one can tend one's garden, cook one's meals, do an active physical practice in a yogic way, play one's musical instrument as a yoga practice, there are certain layers and levels of awareness. It's very, very hard to access when we are using our sense powers and our action powers in external activity. But when we invite all those powers to turn inwards and come to the center, that's when we can really tune at that subtle level. And when we tune at that subtle level, it allows like a deeper, more rooted experience of samatva and evenness, which is the foundation then for a little bit more ease and skillfulness in the things that we do externally. So meditation, the essential yoga practice. And there's a beautiful, beautiful illustration of this in the yoga tradition. And they give the image of the meditator being like the archer, the archer who draws back the bow. So the story goes, deep in the forest in India, there are two tribal boys who are used to hunting with spears. And they're out in the forest, and they have their spears with them, and they are looking for food, moving stealthily, quietly through the forest, when they notice a hunter they've never seen before. And they see him up ahead, and he has this instrument, it's a bow, in his hands. They've never seen this before. And they can see in the distance a deer. And they can see that the hunter, with this strange bow instrument, is focused on the deer. And they see him pull back the arrow, which looks like a spear, away from the intended target, which they can see is the deer, way in the distance. As the two boys look at each other and say, he's far too far away. I don't think the deer's not going to come anywhere. He's pulling his spear away from the target. He needs to get closer to the target. He's doing it all wrong. But then the archer, having drawn the bow back and drawn the arrow, what the boys perceive as the spear, away from the target, lets the arrow fly. And it flies with great power and precision towards its target, and the boys are startled and amazed. They'd never seen a bow before. Same for the person who doesn't meditate. The person who doesn't meditate can see the meditator sitting still with their eyes closed, doing apparently nothing, maybe for 10, 15, 20, 30, 45 minutes, whatever it might be, in the morning and the evening, and think, this person is moving away from life. This person is moving away from what they really want. What are they doing with their time? They need to go out into life and get closer to what they want if they want to achieve what they really want in life. But the meditator is like the archer. The boys are hunting with their spears. They don't have so much range. The archer's got a lot more range. Can hunt more easily. The idea being, the meditator, when he or she draws back from the world, it's like drawing back the bow. When we draw all our sense and action powers inwards and let them all come together, all become calibrated and attuned, then when we go out into activity, we can go out with much greater power, precision, and awareness. And with that heightened, more integrated, subtle flowing awareness, then we can navigate the predictably unpredictable challenges of the day-to-day that much more skillfully, that much more easily. So, once again, I will say, yoga and meditation, not two different things. Yoga is meditation. Meditation is yoga. The true meditative state is the same as the state of yoga, a state of balance, integration, harmony, oneness, wholeness.